HighBridge, a division of Recorded Books, presents Dear Parents, A Field Guide for College Preparation by Jon Mcgee. Foreword by Chris Farrell. Read by Graham Rowat. Foreword. Heading off to college is an act of optimism for both parents and their young adults. Whether it's community college, technical school, private liberal arts campus, or downtown public university, young adults take a major step toward finding their place in the world and carving their own path when they enter college. We may live in a grumpy era, but if you spend time on a college campus visiting with students, you can't help but believe the world will become a better place. All right, time to take out your number 2 pencils. When it comes to post-secondary education, A. Graduates are paid more than their high school degree-only peers. B. Graduates have lower rates of unemployment than less educated workers. C. Both A and B. Students borrow more to pay for college because A. College costs have risen faster than the Consumer Price Index. B. Family incomes have stagnated. C. Both A and B. The purpose of financial aid is A. To close the gap between what families can afford to pay and the price of college. B. To confuse parents with unrealistic estimates of ability to pay. C. Both A and B. Go to the head of the class if you answered C to all 3 questions. Little wonder college is controversial. A cottage industry of critics has gained an audience claiming post-secondary credentials aren't worth the time and cost. An easy way to spark a fierce discussion at a neighborhood barbecue or during a lunch break at work is to ask why college costs so much. You can fan the flames of discussion by bringing up the convoluted financial aid system and its arcane formulas. It's a reasonable bet if Mark Twain were alive today, he'd modify his famous quip about the certainty of death and taxes to include college tuition goes up every year. That said, parents know from experience that college graduates have lower rates of unemployment and higher wages than their less educated peers. Post-secondary education is a necessary but not sufficient condition, to paraphrase the philosophers, for young adults to have an opportunity to land the kinds of jobs and careers that pay well and offer prospects for creativity and development. College is an incendiary topic because the stakes are so high. Put it this way. College is expensive, but not earning post-secondary credentials is even more costly, measured over a lifetime. This calculation comes before taking into account intangible benefits from higher education. I think students come out of college as better citizens, as more thoughtful members of their communities, maybe with different cultural tastes and cultural tendencies than they would have otherwise, said Michael McPherson, the former president of Macalester College, in an interview years ago. For many people, it's the most valuable investment they are going to make. McPherson is spot on. So is Jon Mcgee. If you've picked up this book, my guess is you don't need convincing that there's a lifelong return from a college education. You want to understand the process better, and you'd like to help your teen smartly navigate their choices. You picked wisely, if that's the case. The reality is there are many good higher education options for young people, and with some planning, there's no reason to saddle young adults, or parents, with steep debt burdens. Jon is a wonderful guide, shedding light on the mysterious process of applying to college while bringing much insight to the inevitable trade-offs. However, like me, you may find the real value lies in hearing the intangibles expressed by parents, including Jon, looking back on their experience with their students. A major takeaway of the letters in this book is the common desire parents have for their children to be engaged and curious throughout their lives, to find a path toward both meaning and money when they launch their own lives and careers. As parents, we've been around long enough to realize how much curiosity and discovery will hold them in good stead throughout the ups and downs they'll confront long after graduation. Your student will have many careers, many jobs, and many enthusiasms. Vice President Joe Biden captured the essence of the letters Jon gathered in this book in a 2015 commencement speech at Yale University, paraphrasing an expression of his father. "It's a lucky man or woman who gets up in the morning, puts both feet on the floor, knows what they're about to do, and thinks it still matters," Biden said. "That's what we want for our children." The particulars of how to best nourish that sense of curiosity and the search for meaning take many paths during the college years. You'll hear about parents embracing gap years, community and technical college, full-time job and part-time schooling, and the classic experience of the full-time student on campus. It's fascinating to read how children growing up in the same household can be so different. A choice that works wonders for one team may not be the right decision for another child. Sending a child to college elicits many emotions. Did you know it's possible to be extremely happy and deeply sad at the same time? That's how I felt when we dropped off each of our 2 children at college and when we watched them graduate 4 years later. They learned so much. They made lifelong friends. I'm sure they had adventures I still don't know about. Thank you. They're carving out their own paths with careers and relationships. College was an integral part of their journey. But college is also one step, to be sure a big one, in a lifetime of continuous learning. Happily, they've grown up to become young adults that fulfill every parent's wish. They turned out better than their parents. Best of all, they still call and visit. Chris Farrell, Marketplace. Prologue. In the beginning. Dear parents, I came of age during the late 1960s and 1970s, likely the last generation of free-range children, living a good portion of my early years independent of the watchful, hovering eyes of parents. Born near the tail end of the baby boom generation, my young life was defined by kids. Lots of kids. The street where I grew up teemed with children. The classrooms in our schools were jammed with students. We roamed in packs, from ballparks to swimming lessons, to schools and to malls. Like any other kid, I spent no time thinking about what it meant to be a parent. Our parents were just parents, born to understand what we needed and wanted. What else was there to know? As kids, we more or less lived for the moment, the next game, the next class, or the next activity. The future seemed a distant prospect, and, in any case, that was something our parents were supposed to worry about, not us. The sweet naivete of youth. Fast forward. Adulthood. As my wife and I walked out of the hospital holding our firstborn on a cold November day in St. Paul, Minnesota, in 1996, one question looped through the soundtrack of my mind. Where is our owner's manual? Any confidence we may have had after weeks of birthing classes vanished with the reality that parenthood was no longer an illusion or a fantasy. It was real. Our son was ours to feed, clothe, care for, and raise. He did not come to us with an owner's manual, though he immediately expressed both his needs and his demands. My wife and I had every reason for confidence. We had waited to have children and were both in our early 30s. We each had good careers, my wife's as an elementary school teacher, which at least to me seemed to confer some deep understanding of how children worked. We both grew up in large, supportive families. Many of our friends already had children and freely offered us advice and tips. Still, the moment the door opened to the waiting world, none of that seemed to matter. Now what? For the record, I failed my first test of parenthood. After driving home from the hospital on icy roads, I discovered that I had not securely or safely fastened the car seat. I still have nightmares about car seats. So began our journey of parenthood, a trek defined by trial and error, ecstasy and sometimes agony, and framed by an abiding love of our children. Thousands of websites, books, and magazines offer a range of practical, philosophic, and often humorous insights about what it means to parent. But there is no precise definition of parent or parenting. It is the ultimate on-the-job experience. We learn as we go. 3 more children later, my wife and I have learned much about ourselves and about life, but we still don't have an owner's manual. College. The word conjures a variety of emotions, from anxiety and fear to pride and admiration. For new parents, it typically seems an unimaginably distant prospect. 18 years may as well be a century in the sleep-deprived, car-seat days. During those early years, fuzzy pajamas demand more attention than fuzzy futures. For parents of high school-age children, college appears as a timer, ticking down to a 0 hour. Is college the right choice? What kind of college is best? What can we afford? Will my child be ready? For parents dropping their daughter or son off at college, college often evokes simultaneous feelings of joy and sadness. It signals a significant step toward independence and adulthood, but also a significant family change. Has my child made the right choice? Will my son or daughter be happy? What will happen to them? In the hullabaloo of the moment, new college students often forget that it is a time of transition not just for them, but for their parents and families too. At its most antiseptic, college is often described and considered through a series of numbers: rankings in guidebooks, acceptance rates, academic profiles, student-to-faculty ratios, the percentage of students who live on or off campus or who study abroad, retention and graduation rates, percentage of recent graduates who are employed, and the earnings of alumni, among many others. Each of those numbers communicates something important that can be useful to parents and prospective students as they navigate the world of college choice. But each puts us at risk of depersonalizing what ultimately is an exceptionally personal experience: the act of choosing a college, the act of learning and developing as a person, and the act of selecting a life path that is exciting and fulfilling. Guidebook summaries and handy numeric mnemonics describing how much and how many almost never capture the intensity of emotion that underlies both the college choice and the college experience. I have spent much of my career studying the influence of economic and demographic trends in college enrollment and how students make their college choice, the last 17 years as head of planning at the College of St. Benedict and St. John's University in Minnesota. It is fascinating work, at least to me, that helps us to better understand our students. But I also am a parent of 4 children who now span the ages of 13 to 21. Unimaginable as we headed home from the hospital in November 1996, in the fall of 2015, our oldest headed off to college, the beginning of a post-secondary parade that will not end for our family until 2028. During my oldest son's senior year of high school, I nearly sent my wife over the edge when I casually announced that, to finish financing our 4 children's elementary, secondary, and collegiate education, we could face costs that totaled more than $1 million over the next 15 years. A gulp-worthy sum by any definition. As we went through our first son's college search and selection process, I learned and experienced what I thought I already knew, but didn't really. Although it may be interesting and important to view college through my professional lens of numeracy and social science, most people don't make decisions that way. Both the process and the choice are deeply emotional, forcing an examination of both mind and heart. These are our children, after all, the people we have taught and cajoled and nurtured and loved for 18 years. Though I have spent decades working in higher education, my wife and I experienced the emotions all parents experience as they wind through their college search, the same hopes, fears, and doubts. We learned through experience that divining rods pointing to an obvious or singular choice did not exist, nor was there an easy-to-follow, start-to-finish manual to help guide our thinking for the many steps along the way. Parents play an integral role in the college search process, and not just at the point of application, selection, or paying the bill. It starts as soon as our children arrive. The educational, financial, and parenting choices we make when our kids are young influence who our daughters and sons are, who they will become, and the post-secondary choices they, and we, will later have. Each fall, after the new class arrives at the College of St. Benedict and St. John's University, I point out to our faculty and staff that none of our students come to us as a blank slate. Each new student arrives not only with an easy-to-capture and describe academic and socioeconomic profile, but also with a set of social, cultural, and personal values and characteristics, and a set of lived experiences that shape who they are and to what they aspire, much of that influenced by their parents and their family experiences. At the same time, though, college often is among the first and biggest adult or life path decisions our children make. It's an important one, a choice that will form and influence their professional and personal lives in the decades to follow. The line between what's yours, mine, and ours sometimes blurs. Preparing for college and selecting a college requires a kind of trust walk for parents and students alike. We try to provide our children with enough guidance at each step along the way to position them to make a decision they ultimately must own and will experience. At a professional presentation I made to parents of high school juniors a couple of years ago, a mom raised her hand and asked, with no small amount of fear in her voice, "What happens if my daughter makes a bad choice?" Though she did not indicate what constituted a bad choice, her tone suggested that she was seeking help to identify the one best college for her daughter. It was a fair question, frequently asked by parents, though not one easily answered. The value of college lies in the whole of its experience, from start to finish. Though difficult to understand at times, if for no other reason than the cost involved, no college experience comes with a guarantee, in part because students themselves shape and define their experience, independent of the institution they choose. More simply put, students are the primary input to their own college output and outcome. Their own level of aspiration, preparation, perspiration, and commitment makes an extraordinary difference in the ways they experience college and the outcomes they will derive from it. So, how to answer this mom? I chose a response I'm certain she was not looking for or expecting, but one that captured what I think parents most need to know. The only bad choice is an unconsidered choice. College features, images, and brands are seductive. That is by design. But the images too often are limited to the sensory and struggle to get to the heart of the matter. Before our kids make their college choice or even begin the search process, they need to understand first what makes them tick. Who am I? What do I expect? What do I value most? What do I need? Parents play a significant role in guiding them to that self-understanding. I've presented this book through the viewpoint of letters to parents, most of them written by parents of college-age or pre-college-age children. The letter writers work at or with colleges, universities, and secondary schools across the country, public and private, some highly selective, others not. Each writer is a leader in some way at his or her school or organization. I ask them to offer their best advice to themselves. How did they prepare themselves and their children for college? What did they learn from their own experiences? The letters are personal, because the process a family goes through to select a college and enroll in college is deeply personal, not antiseptic or algorithmic. I have woven in research about college preparation and choice, as well as personal and professional stories of my own throughout, learned and experienced over many years. Like all of my letter-writing colleagues, I'm still learning, and I have 3 children yet to send off to college. I have organized the book around broad chapters that mostly define the stages of childhood and parenthood leading up to college, as well as the process of searching for and selecting a college. I begin introducing the vast landscape of higher education and the nearly overwhelming number of choices available to students, addressing questions about what college is, its value, and early learning preparation and planning when children are young. What follows is mostly chronological, a walk through the various stages of preparation for college as our children age. Early chapters delve into habits of success in school and how parents can guide their children through their school years. The middle chapters discuss a sometimes overlooked but key piece of the admission process, fit, as well as the most anxiety-inducing issue for most families, how to prepare for and finance a college education for their children. The final chapters attempt to demystify the college selection process and help parents guide their children on matters of applying to and choosing a college. I conclude with insights about sending children off to college and the appropriate roles for parents as their children experience these important years of their lives. This work is not a guidebook about how to select or get into a specific college or university, nor is it an investment guide or a step-by-step tool describing how to complete a college application. In other words, it is not an owner's manual. Rather, I offer it to you parents as a set of insights, guidance, and hopefully wisdom, a field guide of sorts, about college preparation, and college choice at the various stages of your children's lives. My aim is not to prescribe, but to empower, and in the process perhaps reduce some of the anxiety and stress that have come to define the college search process. Parenting is a complex business and hard work. Hopefully, parents talking to parents can ease the burden a bit and help to light the path. Enjoy these years. As all parents of college students come to realize, they pass much too quickly. All the best. Jon Mcgee, Cold Spring, Minnesota. 1. Discover college. We don't see things as they are. We see them as we are. Anais Nin. From Pam Horn, Vice Provost for Enrollment Management, retired, Purdue University, Indiana. Dear parents, I spent my entire 43-year career in higher education. Over that time, I worked with thousands of families, lived through my 2 daughters' transitions from high school to college, and learned many important lessons. Long ago, when our children were very young, my husband and I agreed that our job as parents was to raise competent and responsible adults. Keeping that goal in mind provided us a solid framework for our children's transition from high school to college, an important step in their development as young adults. Along the way, we learned that the path is different for different children, and not always straight. My older daughter could have been the poster child for early choice and clarity, discovering her dream college on vacation when she was just 14 years old. She stuck to that dream throughout her high school years and applied early. Happily, she was admitted and thrived, taking advantage of everything the college had to offer, both on campus and off. Simple. We had an entirely different experience with our younger daughter. Unlike her sister, she was indecisive. She ultimately considered 2 outstanding institutions, but did not settle on her decision until the very end of the admission process. Although she had a good experience, I cannot honestly say she flourished in college or fully experienced her institution. 2 children, 2 experiences. In spite of the differences in their experiences, both our children turned out just fine, each building a successful career and living a good adult life. The lesson was clear. Many paths, and often detours, can lead to success. Your daughter or son might want to experience a different part of the country, stay close to home, commute, or even take a gap year. They may enroll at one school and transfer to another. More than half of all students will change majors at least once. Our children will not always get what they or we want, and they may not follow the straightest or simplest path. But that's not always a bad thing. Encourage your child to chart their course and own their college search and choice process. Admission is not a grade on parenting. Ultimately, college is what a student makes of it. I have always believed that, but new research confirms that how one goes to college is more important than where a student enrolls. The Gallup organization has surveyed thousands of college alumni and found that several types of involvements and relationships in college are strongly associated with great careers and thriving personal lives. Institutional characteristics such as rankings, cost, number of students enrolled, or type of institution private or public, matter little in terms of outcomes. Instead, Gallup found that engagement is key, particularly in sustained long-term projects, student organizations, and internships. Meaningful relationships also are important. Mentors, professors who make learning exciting, and others who care about each student as a person make an extraordinary difference. What does it all mean for our children? Learning how to communicate is vital. Asking for help when needed is a sign of strength, not weakness. Finding involvement outside of the classroom that complements academic study and meets personal interests is not a distraction, but rather a ticket to leadership and community. And finally, networking and developing diverse relationships and a love of alma mater contribute to future success. So parents, teach your children well about problem-solving, interpersonal communication, and resilience. They will be grateful you taught them how to make choices, recover from mistakes and setbacks, develop great relationships, pursue their dreams, and manage their lives. Through the Looking Glass. Each of my parents was the first in their family to go to college, both of them in the 1950s. For them and their families, higher education represented a completely new experience. A generation later, they sent their 4 children off to college. Though my parents never told us we had to go to college or to a certain kind of college, growing up I only ever imagined myself enrolling at a 4-year school, much like the ones my parents had attended. College, a path I simply assumed, meant something very particular and very familiar. Now, as my own 4 children begin to complete high school and prepare for the next stage of their lives, I often find myself retreating to the temptation of my familiar, thinking about college for them in the same way I experienced it myself. On reflection, the lesson is simple. We frequently shape our dreams, preferences, and expectations for our children through the prism of our own experiences. We understand what is and what we think should be through what is most familiar or comfortable or known to us. Thinking that way can open doors in many cases, but may close them in others. Our familiarity with what we know, as well as our perceptions or even fears about what we don't know, often frame our choices, not just for ourselves, but also for our kids. Unfortunately, when it comes to college, that prism may be too narrow, not reflecting the vast array of choices our children actually have, or, worse, being out of sync with their abilities or aspirations. Over many years, I've learned that almost everyone has some impression of college and the college experience, good, bad, or otherwise. For some, those impressions come from having gone to college. For others, they come from movies or media images. Think Legally Blonde or Animal House. For others still, from sports. When my kids were young, they routinely asked if the schools they watched play in football bowl games or tournament basketball games were good schools. Experience and image exert a powerful influence on perception. Before you take your first look at a college admission publication, peruse a college website, or visit a campus with your daughter or son, take a moment to think about your own image of college. What comes to mind? What does college mean to you? That's important, because how we think about it as parents, what college is and what we expect from it, shapes how we will influence and guide our children's choices. As you begin thinking about your child's educational future, I encourage you to take a wide view of the many opportunities available. Don't limit yourself to an exclusive focus on what you think you know best, or prejudge what may be less familiar to you, or not at all familiar to you. My friend Frank Sachs, longtime college counselor at the Blake Schools in Minneapolis, for years has included this bit of advice in his email salutation. College is a match to be made, not a prize to be won. I thought about that a lot during my oldest son's college search. It is wise counsel, worth reciting frequently, as we guide our children to their future. Grace. My niece Grace graduated with honors from high school in Chanhassen, Minnesota a couple of years ago. She took the requisite college preparatory courses common among kids attending suburban high schools, sprinkling her regular school curriculum with a fistful of advanced placement, AP courses, and even college courses at a local community college. She was the kind of student most colleges spend a lot of time trying to recruit and enroll. Bright, articulate, hardworking.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?